When you're doing these pheno hunts for autos, what traits are you prioritizing? Now, you already kind of talked about some of these things, right? And maybe this is where it gets into your veg criteria. But you had talked about node spacing. You look at the lateral branching. You want to breed out that Christmas tree shape. You're looking for frostiness, bud density, terp profile. What else are you looking for?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I can see the 15 that we put in here. Um, I can read off, and then I can talk about like the other stuff that's really not really quantifiable. So we tried to get it so that was um, everybody could answer questions 1 to 10 or number of days from seed. Like that was the only two types of answers that we could plot everything. So start of transition to flower, like that's a big one of like, okay, how many days from seed does it begin its transition to flower? And that's, you can define that in a bunch of different ways. Pre-flowers, a lot of people misunderstand what pre-flowers are. They are the singular sex organ at I think it's called the axis, which is just at a node where a branch meets stalk, or two branches. You will have one singular calyx or bract, or you'll have a pollen sac there. So that's a pre-flower. That's when the plant shows its sex, and then transition to flower is, I really kind of define that as when the plant begins to shift its energy toward fruiting rather than vegetative growth. Um, that's kind of a tough one to, but then um, so number of like potential flowering sites. So like, all right, the first thing that we have like is the vigor, vegetative vigor is huge. So like, what's happening from when we start, and we start with seed starting plugs. Like I forgot about these actually. There's plants in here. So we have like a seed starting plug, and then that will go into a 5-inch square pot. So about 5 days in there from seed. Give it a couple days. Let it show a couple true leaves, and then go into a 5-inch square pot. The reason for that, two reasons for that. We're looking for transplant tolerance. We want plants that after you transplant them, they don't just give up, or they don't get, the effect is not negative. Rather, we see them speed up after transplant. And now that also comes down to how you transplant. But if you're transplanting the exact same way for 500 or 1,000 plants, and some of them don't like it and some of them do, you get, that's, there's a selection trait there. But vigor is huge. So like we have like measuring the plant at 10 days from sprout and then 25 days from sprout. Like, what's the difference in growth? How much has it grown from 10 to 25? Because that's a really important time for an autoflower. You know, if you're not maximizing that period of growth, then you're losing yield. Like every day that you're not getting the most growth, you're losing a percentage point of yield. Whether that, it depends on the stage of growth, but you could be losing 10% yield every day that you're not feeding them properly and getting that growth. And then branch height uniformity. That's, I've talked about that, but it's we've done our best to breed and only breed with plants where your lateral branches meet that canopy height, and your apical meristem, your center stalk, almost always it's gonna rise above, but sometimes it's hard to tell which one it is because they're all the same height. So like that's really important for us. Leaf morphology. People will never get away from the indica sativa lie. So leaf morphology, we pay attention to it because when it comes down to, I could have two identical plants, terpene density, bud structure, finish time, but one has fat leaves and one has skinny leaves, and people are going to think they're a different phenotype. So we have to pay attention to leaf morphology, even though we don't really care about it. Although it is important for light penetration, and it does, it does factor into how the plant grows. So leaf morphology is one that we check off. Stem strength. So just like structural integrity of the plant. Can you grab a lower branch and shake it without it snapping? Are the branches starting to they break and then they heal? You get those big knots at the branches, and that's something that we pay attention to, because later on they're going to have all that bud weight on them. Early on in veg, we want to make sure we're paying attention to how strong are they, and that's also really due to calcium. Calcium is super important. It's the building block of what produces strong vegetative or structural growth, rather than what people might think silica. It's just like an extra add-on, not necessary. Nutrient tolerance, huge one. So you got to be able to slam these things with nutrients to the maximum level before you're overfeeding. You're finding that line, and that's different for everybody. That's different for your temperature, your humidity, your light intensity, how you're feeding, your frequency of watering. If you're in autopots, if you're in cocoa, like all these different things, they affect your nutrient tolerance. But genetically, there is a nutrient tolerance factor that needs to be that's our job, is to pay attention to that genetic nutrient. So like no matter what you do to it, this is always going to be superior to its neighbor, one plant versus the other in taking that nutrient load, regardless of environment. And then nutrient requirements also, that kind of fits into that. Like, okay, how much can it take? But how much does it need to stay healthy? It's a different equation, but still really important. Like you could have some where you're feeding at X rate, and some of them are starting to look nutrient deficient, and some of them are doing great. Some of them could take more. Some of them need way more. So like that nutrient requirements is important. Internodal spacing, again, it's important for light penetration. It's really important for preventing fungal pathogen growth. Botrytis, powdery mildew, they love when air does not pass through the plant well. So if you've got internodal spacing that's just stacked, these big donkey dicks, which autoflowers can be famous for, your yield might benefit from it, but if you lose 40% or 20% of your yield to botrytis, what was the point of internodal? It's also, it gives them a more photoperiod like structure, which I like visually. I think just from the perspective of like autoflowers have not yet plateaued in their trajectory toward being as good as photoperiods. And I think that branch structure, internodal spacing, really plays a role there, and making like these nice pretty branches that you see with photoperiods. Transplant tolerance, we talked about that one because we transplant again. So once from the plug into the 5-inch, and then at 25 days or so, 20 to 25 days after it goes into the 5-inch, it'll go into a 3-gallon or 5-gallon, depending on. But we do 3-gallon in the traded grows, and they do it fantastic. So transplant tolerance, pest resistance, it's difficult. If you have pests, you can answer that question. If you have no pests, then you can't really say your plants are pest resistant. You just didn't get them. It's like nothing that, if you have no pests, you cannot point to a single thing that you're doing as the reason you have no pests, because maybe you weren't going to get them. So that, I've seen people talking about products where it's like, oh yeah, well, 10 out of 10 people had no aphids. It's like, were those 10 people going to get aphids? So yeah. Fungal pathogen resistance. If there is some powdery mildew, if there is some bud rot happening, that's really in the vegetative stage. We're talking more about Pythium and Fusarium, which home growers that's probably Greek. Pythium, stem rot is stem rot and root rot. Fusarium is I'll have to. I have a agronomy. My partner in the fertilizer company, the best agronomist in the world. I'm convinced of it. I've met a lot of them. There's not that many agronomists. Sorry, I've got a cold, so if I feel like I sound super stuffy. But anyway, the best plant and soil brain that I have ever come across. His name is David. And he will talk for hours about Fusarium. But Fusarium, I would say it's on the level of like hoplite and viroid, where people are not talking about it right now. So let's just say you have a mom, a white runts, and this mom has become super difficult over the course of the last 15 years. You used to get much better yields off of it, and you didn't have to baby it that strain as much. Now, it's genetically declined. It's probably Fusarium. There is no genetic decline like that on taking a mom off, a clone off of a mom and making a new mom like that. Almost always it is a fungal pathogen, and people just don't know. They don't take it to be tested, so they don't know that they have fungal pathogen. So I'm not expecting a home grower to really be able to answer that fungal pathogen resistance, but we put powdery mildew, so that's one that you can see. Water uptake and irrigation requirements. So especially in autopots, how fast are they drinking that water? And if you're able to keep separate data plant by plant, that's great. If you've got like 2 or 3 plants of a similar phenotype in an autopot in a tray to grow, you can compare those two in groups. Stem rub aroma. There's a lot you can tell from that stem rub. That comes with experience for sure. And then leaf and shoot color. So your branches, do you have just like genetically purple branches? And then do you have purple leaves? Or are you seeing nutrient related or environmental related color starting to appear? How's that color effect starting to appear in veg? And then the last one, number 15, is the first appearance of the female pre-flowers. So that's what we put in the book.
This clip is brought to you by VivoSun. Use discount code MrGrow15 to save on any of their gardening products. Go to the full episode by clicking the outro card here, or click the link in the description section below. Catch you in the next video.